All right, already. You're back with Anthony Brogdon on Strong Inspirations. Oh, buddy, it's been quite a day on my end because I've talked to some people today. They calling me, telling me they got stories. They calling me. I just had a phone call, lady. I heard of her. Somehow the word got to her. She called me and said, I got a story. So, that's what we're doing here at Strong Inspirations. And the guest that that I'm on with tonight, hey, he been on already. He say, man, I got more to tell you. That you got to let me tell this story, and it's gonna blow your mind. But before it blow your mind, you might want to get you a piece of tissue. You might want to get some tissue because this might be a tearjerker. But you know me, I'm a positive thinking brother. So at the end, we're gonna have to come out with some positiveness out of this story. That's how we're just gonna have to say the brothers overcame that and fought back or something. That's how I look at it. So come on, my friends and people like you that hit the subscribe button. It's free. Hit the like button. It's free. Hit the notifications bell. It's free. To watch this is free. All right. And tell somebody. Don't keep it to yourself. Please don't. Especially some young kids. Share it with a young kid.
That's right.
Share this with a young kid. All right. With an old kid. Your contemporaries. Share this with them. I got a movie out. I do that too. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America from 1800 to 1960. This is the DVD case. And as you see, it's a guy with a young brother, and he's showing him some entrepreneurial skills. Because I talk about it and I focus on the rise of Black business in America. 75 minutes long. It's streaming on Amazon. And then I got the book, the Black Business Book. And I just named it that because, I kind of thought back in the day when they were writing books, in the early, late 1800s, 1900s, they just used the word book. You know what I mean? They ain't come up with nothing ingenious. So I kind of went on that frame, but it's very, very powerful. It's very, very powerful. It's over 200 facts. And I'm telling you, if you know all of them, I give you your money back. That's the contest. And it's on Amazon also. It's called Black Business Book. But, that's what we do here at Strong. And so I want this brother, he's going to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself, and we're ready to roll. Go ahead, my man.
Yeah, once again, I'm Terry James. I'm here in South Carolina, Florence, South Carolina. And tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a photographer by trade, but I spend more time with history, researching my family's history. I do photography now with COVID going on. My family story is, like I said last week, was my great-great-great-grandfather, Irvin James, purchased 109 acres of property in 1870.
Yeah.
5 years outside of slavery. Then 20 years later, 5 sons and a son-in-law bought additional properties. Altogether, we have 246.7 acres that we still own as African Americans, Black.
Yeah. Now everybody, he tells that story, but we ain't gonna tell it over again. I want him to get to the nitty-gritty. Go ahead and tell it what you wanted me to say. You wanted to say.
Last week, I didn't get a chance to finish the story of this area here in Florence, South Carolina. A community was a reconstruction property called Jamestown, and we call it Jamestown of Morris Bluff, South Carolina here. And the other part is, first I kind of misspoke last week when I said there wasn't any good white folk. I meant to say there wasn't any good plantation owners who were good. Because anytime you holding somebody hostage and kidnapping and raping women and beating people, you're not good. And so that's why I cleaned that up a little bit. But other than that, getting back to the brutality of slavery, something that nobody really wants to talk about.
So everybody get your tissue right now. Here you go.
I've read documents where they actually had a whipping day, and they had a whipping post and a whipping barn or whipping house. And they would take you in there and actually they would whip you and they would have whipping where they would gather all of the enslaved people together on one plantation, made from 3 or 4 plantations, bring them over, haul them over like cattle, and then they would have a whipping day. You know, it was a big event for them where they would, if you were acting unruly or getting where you thought you were smelling yourself, as old folk used to say, and they would have a whipping day. And documents read that they would actually tie you up by your thumbs, you know, string you up by your thumbs, and your toes or belly touching the ground, and they would whip you, physically beat you in front of the women and children mainly. And then they would tell the woman, hey, look, if you don't tell us boy, we're going to do him the same way. And so they would do that. And the other part was they would break the males physically and try to break their spirits. But the other flip side was they would actually either have 4 slaves holding them down, or they would put it, like you say, scrap across the barrel. It was just big, scrap across the barrel or across a stump. And they call it butt breaking, or butt busting, or they really sodomize the males to embarrass them in front of their, you know, in front of their.
You said they would take them over a stump? Yeah,
tie them over a stump, or they would tie them to where they were prostrated and their legs and arms are, you know, it's like a cross. And they would like an X, I should say, a cross. And they would take them and they would sodomize them right in front of everybody and say, this is your leader here. This is who acting up. You know, look what I just did to him. He's nothing. And try to humiliate the slaves and take their dignity away and their manhood away. And that was one of the things they did. Because I used to hear my father, who is deceased now, he would say all the time, he said, boy, he said, that'd be like, he said, people take advantage of you. He said, that's like being scrapped across the barrel. I never understood that as a child. He said, boy, that's like being scrapped across the barrel. And I never really understood that saying until I was older and started researching. I said, oh my God, this is what my father was talking about. And that was one of the things they were doing. And in the whipping house, the same thing. They would string you up and whip you and abuse you. And you know, this places, when you got those, in the summertime, this place was never air conditioning. You had to go in there and you'd be sweating in these little houses, and they would just basically whip you and abuse you. And I found that one. And
you told me about one in the barrel where they would put nails or something?
Yeah. They would actually take these big old barrels. They would ship liquids in, maybe rum, or ship sugar in it, or whatever they would ship in those big old round barrels. I mean, big barrels. And they would take it and put you in the barrel, then push barbed wire in there around you and drive nails in the barrel and then roll you down a hill. That was the other thing they would do. And that was right in this area. And then they had in this area, in the Petey River Swamp Basin or close to it, because I had a cousin who used to come from Baltimore every year, Miss Pierce, and she would tell the story of how her father told him how they would take the enslaved and tie a board to their feet, put their hands behind their back, and turn upside down in an old dug well. An old dug well is where you dug a well to get your water. And they would turn upside down for 2 or 3 days sometimes. Bring them up, give them a piece of bread and water, and they thought they were satisfied with the punishment. If they didn't, they'd turn them up, put them back down there again.
Yeah, but ain't that blood is gushing to your head there, ain't it?
Yeah, they didn't care, man. That was your punishment. And so what happened? The other thing was there was a dungeon, and it was in a book that a gentleman wrote in the 1800s. And he was researching this area and riding through Marion County. There was a thing called a dungeon, and he said they were found along the rivers in a lot of places in this area. And what happened, this thing was 30 feet wide and at least 30 or 40 feet deep. And they would take you, roll you down on the rope, and leave you in that hole. And it was actually an underground water stream that was running. And you'd have to stay in that. You couldn't get out. And you would be left in there sometime for 2 or 3 days, you know. And they felt like you had been punished enough. They would let the rope back down, pull you up, give you water and bread, you know. That was the other thing they would do, you know. So you had the patrollers, or the slave catchers, which is your policemen now, if people that know that, your patrollers, your slave catchers are actually patrols. And if you look at the state of South Carolina, the Confederate uniform, if you look at a history of uniforms in South Carolina, that Confederate uniform is what the highway patrolmen in South Carolina still wear. They wear that gray uniform with the blue stripe on the side, or just a blue.
Wow.
With the gray on it. They plain gray, or just the one with the blue stripe. Used to be a blue stripe on the side, but it's wear gray. There's still that uniform. And I had a friend who was out patrolling for years, and I told him that story. He said, "Oh my God, you mean to tell me I'm wearing a Confederate uniform?"
Oh yeah.
I said, "Yeah, it's part of Confederacy."
Yeah, but let me ask you this. Now, this is kind of interesting, though. Okay, I'm beating you as a male slave,
right?
And I don't want to kill you, because I still need you to do what you do to do the crops or whatever.
Okay, it's like this. I don't want to kill you. I'll beat you almost until death, and then I'll let you and you go back to the midwife or back, and they take care of you, get you back. You go back, and they kept doing that to show the enslaved young men that if you act up, you'll get the same thing. And so the women would actually keep the young bucks or young men, hey, cool down. You don't want it to happen. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. So even today, even in the 21st century, a lot of women are protective of their male sons.
Yeah, sure. Let me ask you this now. What, like, for example, what would a slave guy do that might, I know that he ain't talking back to the white guy. What would he do?
Well, he would act, all right, it's just like a child. You tell him, all right, get up and go move this toy, pick him off the floor, and he's slow to respond. Oh, you getting grown, huh? You would punish that child, or
yeah.
At least in the South, I don't know what to do in Detroit, but at least in the South, you would get your behind tore.
Yeah.
See, they would do the same thing. It would either be a workage or something they thought they were acting up, or act like they wanted to look at them, because and then it was on. Oh, you acting up. Oh, we need to get him. We need to treat him right. We need to whip him. You know what I'm saying? So even though they would probably give you some licks, then that whipping day came. You got more.
Now,
so
who's doing the whipping? Is it the owner actually doing it, or he's got his hired hands?
His overseer would actually do that. He didn't do anything, and a lot of time the owner itself wouldn't really know what was going on, unless he was a hands-on owner. Because you had some owners who were physicians, who were politicians, they would be going off, but the overseer of that plantation would make sure, and the patrollers would make sure that you got your whipping. And if you had a patroller who was hateful, he could say anything. Oh, you saying something against this white man, boy? No, sir. Or either wouldn't say nothing, And so that was one of the ways that they kind of kept in check, kept the enslaved people in check. And every blue moon you would find, I won't say every blue moon, it probably happened more than I haven't found any real documents on it, but the enslaved person would actually kill the overseer. You get so mad, you feel so bad, they killed the overseer, and they ran away. They ran away in the swamps, and they try to act like everybody was docile, but they constantly had trouble. Especially, you imagine you're a young man and you're strong as an ox, and this man gonna talk to you like he any kind of way, you be ready to knock him out because you get tired of the abuse. And you would act like it, but you would get tired of the abuse. And so it took the older people, the wiser people, to try to help them keep from getting themselves killed or beat to death. And it was said that they were always, depending on what plantation you were on, they were always hungry, was a thing. They were always hungry. Now, but on the Johnson plantation here, the young man who told the story said, we ate good. Said Dr. Johnson, over a period of time, killed 100 hogs to feed the Negroes. He didn't say Negroes, but it's what he would hear all his life.
Yeah.
And so, because this guy had over 1,000 acres and they were farming that land, And see, the thing about slavery, you got your rations either on a Saturday or Sunday for the week. You didn't get nothing every day. You got it for the week. You know, you got a pound or two of meal. It depends on what plantation you were on and what they had available. You know, you got 6 herrings and, you know, a peck of corn or 2 pecks of corn, whatever they called it, you know, and that's how kind of how you ate all the time. But the abuse and the sexuality exploitation of Black women, and see, we hear about that abuse. You know, you imagine people say, well, that plantation owner, he did that, he was good. Wait a minute. You got Black women that's very endowed. You know what I'm saying? And be honest with you, white women at that time were less attractable. So they went after the sisters. You see what I'm saying? So most of them, they tell you the story of the plantation owner and the enslaved woman, but they don't tell you the story of the plantation, the slave owners, male slaves, and the women, the white women, the daughters, the nieces, and the wives. Because
what are you saying there? They would get with the men, or what are you saying?
Oh, absolutely.
What are you saying? Yeah.
You remember Mandingo.
Yeah.
That's what story was based on.
The white women wanted the Black men.
The Black man was tied up in the barn. He was out there gambling and drinking and acting crazy. So she was lonely. So she went to the barn. And hey, she had her way with it, you know. And when the thing was, and it's true, that when they would have a baby from this Black man, if the midwife caught the baby, she would catch the baby, wrap it up quickly, and take it to the slave quarters, because 9 times out of 10, somebody was always pregnant in the slave quarters. So you had nursing this baby, and you didn't know if that was the slave catcher's baby, was that the wife baby, or the master's baby. And so if the doctor came in and did it, what would happen, he'd look at, oh my God, and he would cut the umbilical cord off and let the baby bleed out. So there's a lot of brutality, and people don't want to talk about it. But how do you keep people in check? You abuse them.
There's a something that I didn't understand, is that for some reason I thought the lighter skinned people all worked in the house and the darker skinned people worked in the field. That's not true. That's not always true. If you were light skinned and you were in the house, and you were part of the plantation's owners, you were part of his, you were related to him. And the wife regretted you being there. Yeah. Because he couldn't keep his hands and eyes off of you. And so she would lie. See, people don't understand. Yes, the male, the plantation owner was very vicious and mean-spirited. But who had more people hung and whipped was the women. Really? Yes, the women. You were in the bed with this woman. She said, I don't think John was acting right. He acted at me, blah, blah, blah. He's no good, blah, blah, blah. The only thing she had to say was, he looked at me. That's all she had to say. He was hung. He was hung or sold and whipped. They would, because she said it. And so anything you blame on a Black man, it was done. It was over for him. That white woman, he'd get mad with her. Maybe he was afraid to sleep with her, or he slept with her daughter. It was all kind of stuff going on, man. It was. And there was no condoms. Well, but they still had ways. Women had ways, and they, back then, I don't know what they did, because there is a part that talks about, but I can't go in because I didn't read. I can't remember that part of it. But no, they didn't have condoms. No. And you imagine when they used to go to auction, and they used to take their wives, but the men would be up front, and the wives would be at those fans. They'd be like, "Oh my gosh," and be whispering like this, talking. "Oh, did you see him? He needs to get him." Because they like what they saw. Really? Well-endowed Black men hanging low, and they wanted him. And see, even I think in the movie, they showed this German woman. Her husband, she was married to a white man. Yeah. He died. So she inherited his plantation, which was rare. But she wasn't a U.S. citizen. So that's why she was able to do that. And she would go out and get her a slave at auction just to have sex with him.
and nothing the white men could do. They didn't like it, but what could they do? It was a lot of this when they stopped the South Atlantic slave trade. That's when the slave breeding began.
Now, okay, when you talk about that, then a lot of the women they just the slave owners like come to my room, meet me there, or meet them in the barn and just have sex with them.
Yeah, they would go out. And see, the thing about it, it's so complicated, but it's not. Well, even when you were allowed to stay with a man,
the black woman,
the black woman, he could come and knock on the door. Mary Ann, Sally, I need to see you for a minute. And she was mad. She didn't want to go. And she felt unprotected because her husband didn't say anything, or her mate couldn't say anything because he would have been killed, or they would have sold him off in different places, deeper in the South. There's a lot of stuff that went on, man, that's still being uncovered today. It's a lot of stuff that's still in trunks. These old folks still had a lot of stuff in trunks. They documented stuff, and it's still with the families. They're not releasing some of that stuff because they're embarrassed by it. That they got white, black ancestors. They don't want you to know that they got colored people in the family, but they do. And so it's a very complicated thing. And I can't remember, somewhere in Virginia, they had this, most of the breeding plantations were in Virginia, had some in Mississippi, but most of Virginia. And they would take a big black man and this is your job. It's just like a prize bull. You go and I hire your bull to mate with my cow so I can produce some stronger bulls or stronger cows. And it's no difference.
So they take the black man and make him have sex with who? Black women.
With breeders. They call them breeders. Women that could breed real good. They wouldn't have a complication in breeding. Their job was to have, if I'm not mistaken, they started having kids at 13 or 14 years old. And see, what I'm saying is complicated.
Yeah.
If you really get into it, people think you're older. No. You were young. As soon as you reach puberty, you started having kids. And the women was expected to have at least 9 to 10 children in her lifetime. Ooh. And men, if you were, I think it's a certain age. If you didn't reach puberty by a certain age, they would either do one or two things. They would, if you got somebody talking, they'll give you a little bit longer. Most of the time, you didn't reach puberty by a certain age, and I'm talking about young age, 13, 14 years old. Then guess what they would do? They would castrate you, send you out to the quarters, and you would never be able to come up to the big house again. Or they would sell you downstream, deeper in the South. Those are two things that are documented they would do. And so I'll tell you, it's brutal, the things that happen. And then you had a flip side of that now. People think I'm lying, but this is true. What would happen, the enslaved women would push some of their daughters off on these plantation owners in order for them to have a better life. Because if he liked that black woman, then she ain't had nothing to worry about no more. Look, I'm gonna give you a good example. Look at Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. She didn't have any issues. Her children didn't get sold off. Why? He had more children than her than he did his own wife. So you think about those things. People need to think deep in it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man. I told you everybody it's going to be deep.
Right. And the deeper the South you get, the more your percentage of being more African gets heavier in the South. But if you start getting up around Virginia, up parts of North Carolina, Virginia, and on up, things start lightening up. You see what I'm saying? Your percentage start going down. You 40%, 50%. Even though you're black, you might be part Russian, European, Asian. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The deeper you get down south, the darker you get, the heavier your roots are.
Yeah.
And that's been proven by geneticists.
Let me go back to this. Because you're blowing my mind. Let me ask you, how did the black man kill the overseer? How did he end up? Have you ever uncovered any stories like that?
Well, yeah, even in this area. It wasn't slavery had ended, but you know, the treatment of the black, the newly freed people didn't change. People think, oh, it stopped. No, it did not change. It's just like you driving at a stop sign or a red light doing 110 miles per hour, and when you get to the light, you hit the brakes. What's going to happen? Your momentum is going to take you straight through that light.
Yeah, that's good analogy.
So momentum of slavery didn't end in 1865. It carried on. It carried on. Oh, you think because this Lincoln man freed, you think you free, ain't it? And see what happened in this area. A black man killed a guy who thought he was still the overseer. Killed him.
How did he kill him? I mean, did he get a knife somehow or something?
I don't know if he beat him to death, hit him with something. I don't know how he killed him, but he killed him. And a lot of people, when they killed, boom, they left. They got out of there. They left, immediately had to leave, get gone, because they knew if they got caught and they went and they changed their names and all this kind of stuff. So that's why sometimes you find in research, you can't find these individuals and you don't see them anymore because they dropped off the radar. Not they were dead. They just dropped off the radar. They killed them and left. You know, it's more so than what they telling you. You know, these
was there how about this? I'm gonna stay with this killing the part. Was there other things that they could do? Like did they was there some kind of poison that they were known to put in their food or anything like that?
Think about this right here. You cooking my food. Okay, I'm gonna do a little deeper than that. Okay. Your child gets sick with fever. The black child gets sick with fever or some kind of fever or sickness. And the white child gets the same kind of disease. Okay, you treat your child with herbs and all this kind of stuff from the earth, they're better, but the doctor's treating this white child is not better. And they go like, wait a minute. Little Toby had the same thing that little Rudolph had, but Rudolph is still sick. What did you do? Well, we did this and we did that. And he healed. And what would happen, and they call it, back then they call it the medicine man, a medicine person would create this herbs and spices best they could, what they could find in the area, and they would heal them. So they started giving it to the plantation owners, but some of them didn't wake back up or didn't pull through. They killed them. So they called it voodoo, that voodoo medicine, you know, that kind of stuff.
That's where that comes from.
Yeah. So even down, especially down in Mississippi, New Orleans area, where they had the puffy fish, and they would take the bladder from the puffy fish, and they would create something to make you like a zombie and put you in a comatose state. You check the pulse, you can't feel nothing. Then they would mix up another thing, and you know that's why they had those ghost tours down there, and they would bury you and everything, and then they would mix up something and give it to you and wake you back up. But if they didn't like you, you didn't wake back up, and that's kind of what's happened to the plantation owners. It's kind of so they started getting people to sample stuff before they took it. Yeah, they got tired of some of those people, and some of them just, oh, John is sick. Master John is sick. Next thing you know, Master John, he dead because they got tired of it. And like I said last segment I was on, I said the African people, especially black men, have never turned their backs on America. Never.
Yeah.
And still haven't. Even today, we're going all the stuff, all these killings. And all these guys are, to be honest with you, they're part of this secret organization called the Ku Klux Klan or the neo-Nazis or these organizations, you know, how you shoot a man. And plus they're fearful of black men. They're actually afraid of black men. That's why if they get a chance to take you out, they try to take you out.
Yeah. As we come to a close, the black guys, is there a story of a black guy who just took a whole bunch of abuse and came out on top?
There probably is. Well, all of them did. But it's probably, I know what you're saying, but it's probably is, but I don't know that story. You know, of who took an abuse that came out on top. It's probably most of them. These guys were, you got to understand, these guys had warriors in their blood. They were warriors. They wasn't punks. You know, when you whip them, they show that stuff on TV with the head down. Huh? These guys want to kill these people. They actually want to take them out. And that's why the Nat Turners and the Denmark VCs and those people, You know, they tell a small portion, like the Stony Rebellion down in Charleston. They tell you a small portion. There was more revolts on plantation than they care to tell us. I'm telling you that. And that's why when Nat Turner turned crazy, that's why they got scared and start coming up with more laws. You know, they're known for changing the law. Just like, okay, what happened in Georgia? They got whipped at the polls. Now they want to change the laws across America. It's nothing new. They do it all the time.
Let's go back to the Nat Turner. Let's close out on how great Nat Turner was.
Well, yeah. I was at an event one time. I think it was in upper parts of New York with my buddy Joe McGill at the Slave Dwelling Project. And this group came out of Wisconsin. And he was supposed to be a Christian group. This guy said, I don't think Nat Turner needs to be celebrated, blah, 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 blah. He killed children. And so Joe was like, hey, we know he killed children, but what do you think about the slave owners? What'd they do? Sometimes I feel like Nat Turner. Started laughing. He said, because Nat Turner saw what brutality was happening to his brothers and sisters. He could not take it. And there was a lot of Nat Turners out there. Some stories you don't hear nothing about.
Yeah.
It's still sealed up in a box. But
how many people did Nat Turner kill?
Oh, he killed, I'm not sure exactly how many, because I do know, but I can't say the number right now, but he killed off some people. If he could have gotten to the neighboring town, they wouldn't have been able to stop it. They couldn't have stopped Nat Turner. And you had folks like John Brown. And back in my era, I used to hear folks say, I'll be John Brown. They said, I will be John Brown. I'll be John Brown. I was like, why are they saying that? I'll be John Brown. I'll be John Brown. Not until I got out of high school, really. Didn't know who John Brown was. Until I said, oh my God, this is who they wanted to be. Because John, what is it, Potter's Reed or whatever they led, Copper's Ferry. You know, John Brown had the same idea. Look, these jokes ain't gonna quit. We gotta kill them. We gotta put fire with fire. These guys ain't quitting. You know, and so
Nat Turner was breaking in. He was breaking in people's homes and just killing them, wasn't he?
Yeah. He was chopping, hacking to death, shooting some of them, hacking some of them to death. He killed the father, the mother, and the children. He said, why did he kill the children? You had chattel slavery. Other words, that the wife and the husband's dead, then you got this 17-year-old boy or 7-year-old boy that he becomes the master.
Wow.
And so we took, he kill them all. It's like the Bible. God said, go in and kill everybody. Don't leave nothing alive. They didn't listen. So when you go in that church, I'm gonna clean house. I ain't playing with you. I'm gonna clean house.
Wow.
You know?
And he was a preacher.
And he was a preacher, but the thing is, the Bible says there's a season for everything. And Nat Turner said, we got to fight. This is not going in. We have to put the fear of God in there. And believe you me, that was like shockwave, not just in the United States, but outside the United States, what Nat Turner did. Places like Stony Rebellion, Denmark Vesey. See, Denmark Vesey was planning the same thing down in Charleston. The only reason Denmark Vesey didn't carry his plan was we had a rat amongst the group, and he went back and told Master.
Yeah, right.
Get him a special tater or something, you know. He went and rat, and then they caught and hang him and did what they did to him. Yeah. You know, Denmark Vesey. And they just did a statue to Denmark Vesey in Charleston maybe about 5 to 7 years ago.
Right.
They did a statue to him. They didn't want to. The city didn't want to, but the people kept putting pressure on him. This man is a hero. You know, so they, you know what they always do, which that was a proper place to do. They took it and put it in the Black community.
Yeah.
You know, try to keep it out of tourist way, out of tourism way, but you know.
Yeah.
It's a lot of history here. It's like I tell people, don't get upset about it, learn about it. You know, and the thing I try to tell people, even though they were enslaved, they wasn't walking around with their head down when they got a chance to celebrate, to pray, and to do the ring shout and to act out some of the culture. They did it. Some plantations had somebody watching them. Some of them let them go free. And then if not that, they go out, sneak down in the woods, live at night, and do what they do, and then come back up and go to bed, you know, and get back up next morning. Now, the first African Baptist church in Savannah, when they started building that church, mind you now, these people work 12, 14 hours a day, go home, and go straight and start building their church. Especially when they had a full moon. They go down in the swamp and build their church. Yeah.
Beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of history, man, that's still forthcoming. I think in either family tree or ancestry now is uploading the Freedmen's records. So digitize the Freedmen's records. So a lot more stuff still coming out. After all this time, these things are still coming to surface.
Yeah.
Brutality. And you see, and I tell my white friends, people that know you, when we talk about history, I said, you got to understand, the murders of Black people didn't start until after slavery, the real murder, with Jim Crow era. That's when the murder started, the mutilation of Black men. You cut off their toes, cut their ears off, and cut their fingers off. You taking pictures with corpse. If you look at all these Black and white folk pictures, none of these are poor white folk. These are prominent white folks. None of them are dirt poor white folks out there. There are prominent white people out there doing this kind of stuff. Then they would set it off, and the last thing they would do, the defiant thing they would do, and I probably told you this last time, they would cut their private off, and they call it penis envy. They would cut it off.
Wow, I don't want to end on that, but you giving me too much, man. Brothers and sisters on this channel, I told you, get your tissue ready. I got my tissue right here. I got my tissue. Thank you so very much for being on this channel. Everybody, come on, hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit, you know what I'm telling you to do. Come on, I've been saying it. Read my book, watch my movie. Check out the Jamestown Foundation. Now you said you had to put on Jamestown.
Yes, Jamestown, Mars Bluff.
Okay, Mars Bluff. Yeah, we're gonna have it on the description. Put that in there. Support this. We coming down. Thank you, everybody, for watching us once again. Thank you for being on the channel. And as I told you before, my brother, I want you to stay strong. I want you to stay safe. I want you to stay on your grind. We're gonna come back at you again because I know you got more to tell us. Everybody, we out. Thank you again. Have a good day. Stay blessed.